Hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I'm the creator of The Art of Freedom for Conscious Living and Masterful Artistry. In this video, I want to share something that is really the essence of everything as far as I understand it. It's the essence of my work to begin with. It's the essence of what I'm sharing just by being, and it's the essence of who I am. It's the essence of who you are. And that is a rather daunting task that I've set for myself, because it's something that's really challenging to put into words. And the funny thing is, it's something so simple. It's so ridiculously simple, and yet I think the fact of being so simple is what makes it elusive. And you'd think, well, Jennifer, if it's something so simple, it should be easy to convey, and it should be something that anybody could understand easily. Well, yes and no. What I want to talk about is a skill. It's an ability, actually. It's a natural ability that we all have as human beings. It's an ability to pause. Now, you may or may not know, I am an Alexander Technique teacher, and at the core of the Alexander Technique, we have a skill that we call inhibition. Now, inhibition has nothing to do with Freud, or at least not the way you might think. It's not about feeling inhibited or having hang-ups about things. Nothing to do with that. But inhibition is a physiological term as well, and the scientific or external explanation of inhibition is, from a physical sense, is that you are stopping neurons from firing. Yeah, you're stopping neurons from firing. So when you think, or when you have an idea and you act on it, there's a chain reaction of events, of neurons that fire together, neurons that are wired together, and they fire together in a sequence that takes you from having an idea to acting on the idea. And we are learning with inhibition to consciously stop that chain reaction. So we're learning how to have an idea and not act on it immediately, which requires consciousness. It requires that we be conscious of our own experience, and from what I understand, that is a unique human experience. And yet animals do this too. They stop, they have an idea, and they don't act on it. But I am not convinced that animals are aware of themselves doing that. So that, I think, is what makes us human, that we have these abilities to think, to use the brain and the body to get what we want, while observing ourselves in that process. So the very simple thing I want to share with you today is how to do that, and the fact that ability and learning how to do that consciously, how to have an idea and consciously stop, or consciously choose rather, whether to act on it or not, that is the essence of being human. And it is the ticket to changing and improving anything and everything in your life. I firmly believe, from my experience, that is true. So it is incredibly simple, and it is something that we all naturally can do, and we all have this intuition that we need to do this. In fact, it's in our language, it's in our culture, just think about the advice to parents: count to 10 first before you act on whatever it is that you want to do with your children. Stop and count to 10, right? Or we talk about stop and think before you speak. And yet, he who hesitates is lost, right? It's not just about stopping and thinking about something before you act. It is about that, but it's about how you are thinking before you act. And so in the Alexander world, we talk about constructive thinking, and especially in my world of primal Alexander, which is a hands-free method of teaching the Alexander technique created by Mio Morales, my partner. Constructive thinking is consciously using your mind to pause and redirect your neural activity, let's say, to consciously choose what to do next. So constructive thinking is actually not a verbal thing. It's something that happens pre-verbally or non-verbally, but we use words to consciously think in such a way to access constructive thinking. Now, this may sound kind of complicated and convoluted because it's kind of hard for me to explain it, but again, it is so simple. And so here is, I'm just going to experiment with you the way I usually do with my students, but I'm going to shorten it a little bit so that you can maybe get a little taste of it right away. Now, what happens if you're watching a video, you're listening to sound? Notice what you're seeing, notice that you're hearing, and let your curiosity turn away from what's on the outside and let yourself be curious about your own inner world and your own experience as it's relating to what's on the outside. So what's happening to you as you are allowing sound to come in? What is happening to you as you are allowing what you're seeing to come in? What's happening to you as you are allowing feeling and sensation to come in? Perhaps you feel the air, the temperature, the chair that you're in contact with, or the floor that you're in contact with. The question is really, what am I noticing about myself right now? What's happening? What's happening to me as I am being myself right now, having this experience of being myself? That's actually something a dear friend of mine and teacher, Tommy Thompson, talks about a lot. It's about reflecting on your own experience of being yourself in the moment, having that experience, living it, being it with self-observation, self-reflection. Mio Morales talks about the primary concern. The primary concern is simply to wonder, what is happening to me as I blank? What's happening to me as I listen? So stay with that curiosity. What's happening right now? What's happening? And then you might have all kinds of things coming up. You might notice all kinds of sensations, positive or negative, painful, pleasant, neutral. All kinds of things come up, and it's a river of experience. It's a constantly changing quality because you're alive. So stay with that curiosity to observe your experience right now. And then can you get curious about the paradox or the opposing forces, so to speak, of things that are painful, some things that are pleasant, positive, negative, neutral. And can you choose to be curious about the positive, the ease in your body? You may have pain in places. Some people have a lot. Some people have just little twinges. If you're noticing any discomfort, can you just notice that and get curious about where in your body there's a little less of that? Where is there just a little bit of easing happening in your body right now? Where is the ease? Where is the easing happening? Where is there just a little opening, a little freeing up happening in your system? Remember, it's this quality of detached, curious self-observation that you want to be curious about your own experience and also be open to receiving new experiences from the world, through your senses. You're not looking for experiences, but experiences happen, and the changes happen in you. So just watch that for a little bit. And then if you're noticing a little bit of easing in your body somewhere, get curious, where else? Where else do I seem to be easing just a little bit? Where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Let's now take a moment to be quiet and stop thinking so much. Just let your thoughts come and go and let them quiet a little bit. Can you turn down the volume in quantity and quality on the thoughts you're having? Can you quiet your thoughts just a little bit? Make them a little softer. Let them recede a little bit into the background while you continue to get curious, asking yourself, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? So this is what we call constructive thinking. This is one way to access that nonverbal ability that we have to actually let go. A lot of people these days are talking about letting go. Let go and go with the flow. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense to all of us. We know we need to do it. We need to know how to let go. But how many of us actually realize that it's just a split second? It's even less. It's like a microsecond. That's all it takes to truly let go of everything. In spiritual language, we talk about detachment. I firmly believe that this ability to pause and free yourself from that chain of events, those chain reactions that are initiated by an idea, that ability to stop it and pause and not act, that is detachment. That is letting go. That is what we want to let go of. We're letting go of our habitual way of being ourselves. We are letting go of our habitual way. We are letting go of a habitual way of being in the world in order to, in that brief instant, allow for something different to happen. We are allowing for inspiration to come in. We are allowing ourselves to be creative. We are giving ourselves permission to be free, to free ourselves from habitual conditioning and constraints and limiting beliefs and limiting assumptions, limiting ideas that are just based on past old experience or even someone else's ideas and past experience. We're allowing ourselves to be a fresh slate or Zen beginner's mind. That's what we are doing in this moment, that we pause and open up to that. This is spiritual, it's aspiritual, it's non-spiritual, it's about life, it's about death, it's about it's just, this is it as far as I understand it. I believe that this is what all of the spiritual teachings are trying to get across. And it's so elusive, and yet it's natural. So I hope you got a little glimmer, a little taste of that as we went through this process of pausing and observing, witnessing. And if you are able to do that, I believe you became a little more fully yourself. You had a little more access to more of yourself, your true being, more access to new neural connections happening in your brain. And when you get out of your own way, this is also in our common mainstream language these days, you need to get out of your own way, stop your self-sabotage. That's what we are doing with this. We're learning how to get out of our own ways. We're learning how to get this thinking negative, unhelpful, cluttered mental chatter out of the mind. And that also clears the excess tension in the physical body, because that mental clutter, everything that you think is reflected by the body. You're one thing. We are one self. You cannot divide the mind and the body and the heart and the emotions and the chemicals, and you just can't divide the self into all these parts. And our culture, our training, our upbringing, our education, it's all about focusing on specific parts. And yeah, there's a time and a place for distinguishing between things, and it's helpful to live in this world to be able to distinguish between a pen and paper, a violin and a bow, and notes on the page and sound in space. Yes, you need to be able to distinguish between your head and the rest of your body. However, those are just facts. It's the unification, the ability to see the whole and practically bring that experience of the whole into your experience of life and the activities. And if you're a musician, how do you bring your whole self, your mind, your body, your emotions, your spirit, into playing a scale, into your arpeggios, into your technical exercises so they become musical? How do you do that? You do it with this tiny, simple little skill that I'm teaching you today, which is called inhibition or constructive thinking, where you get yourself, your cluttered thinking mind, and you're your projections into the future and your regrets about the past. You're living in the present moment. You are fully with your experience here and now. We talk about be here now. It's again in the mainstream language these days, but who knows how to do that? You do that with a specific, very, 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 very simple skill that allows you to unify everything consciously, where it's a choice and you know what you're doing, and it's simple, it's fast. And when you repeat that, that presence happens and that flow happens. That is how to heal your physical body. You access that easing flow, that healing energy that allows, when you're opening up and you're getting out of your own way, your psychophysical mechanism, your organism is freed to function optimally so that your organs can do their job. They have their space that they need. The electrical things that happen in our systems are freed up to work. You're not trying to control your thoughts and your movements, your actions. You're actually paradoxically gaining more conscious, what Alexander, F.M. Alexander, originator of the Alexander technique, what he called conscious, constructive control of the individual, of the self, of the whole self. Some people don't like the term conscious constructive control of the individual because of how we tend to think about control, and there's a fixing that happens. There is a focus on specifics and manipulating. That goes in the opposite direction. That is in a narrowing, hardening direction. But there's another way to think about conscious constructive control. When you think about consciousness, and consciousness is life. It's everywhere. It's being. It's consciousness. It's this that we are. We are consciousness, and everything is consciousness and light, and it makes me excited. It gives me goosebumps. That's what we can access consciously. Conscious, constructive. This is totally constructive. It's life enhancing because it's the life force. Conscious control. That's the tricky word, right? The tricky word is control. Well, what if it were actually a conscious constructive control that we have of ourselves to consciously choose to get out of the way? I need to laugh because as I'm making this video on my phone, I keep bumping up against the maximum recording limit. So what do I need to do? I need to pause and go into all my apps and start uninstalling apps to make more space on my phone. That's actually a practical reflection of what I'm doing here. I'm uninstalling habitual ways of being and thinking to make more space in me. And it's so funny that that just happened to reflect instantly in real practical life what I'm doing in myself. I hope you see the humor in that. I find it hysterical. So I want to wrap up, and what I'm talking about is something so huge and yet so minuscule, and it's really so simple. And I can teach you how to do this. I just taught you how to do this, but how to apply this, how to develop this ability. It's a natural skill that we don't even know we have, or we intuit that we have it, but we don't really know what we're doing. We don't really know how to use it. So I want to teach you how to use it applied to specific things that you want to achieve in your life. As a musician, you probably want to be able to improve your technique. You can't improve your technique without inhibition, without the ability to pause, get out of the way, have a clear intention, and allow your energy to follow that clear intention. You need to be able to know what note to play, how to play, what note is in tune. You have to have a clear intention. Then, how do you practice in a way that's efficient, effective, and simple. So you conserve your time and your energy, and you get your maximum results. You get the results that you want. You make progress quickly. This is the fastest way to learn and progress. It just is. If you know how to use your brain in the way that I am sharing, and it's not just about the brain, you're doing something with your thinking, but it's how you're thinking with your whole self that you need to develop. That ability is what you need to be able to develop so that you can do it on the spot. You can do it before you walk on stage and conquer performance anxiety. You can do it while you're in a performance and something goes wrong, so that you're not reacting. It doesn't faze you. You can actually get better in the face of stress and adversity. So I'm going to wrap up this video because I don't want to have to keep uninstalling apps from my phone. So I could talk about this for the rest of my life, and I'm sure I will, because this is the most important thing to me in my life. I practice this for myself as much as I possibly can. Of course, I forget. Humans forget. That's the big challenge. Even when you know what you should be doing, and you know what you could be doing, and you know how to improve things, we still don't always do it. So it's really helpful to have outside feedback, to have a teacher, a mentor, and a community to support you, to remind you and to give you feedback when you go off the path, to bring you back and to, share with you and share in the experience of being human.